Everybody here. Let's call the meeting of the 2021 Midland County Board of Commissioners Executive Committee of the Whole to order at 9 a.m. And Ann, could you please call roll, please?
Commissioner Snyder,
Here.
Bone,
Here.
Blazer,
Here.
Terwilliger,
Here.
Geisler, Dorian,
Here.
Chairman Nosen.
Here.
7 present, 1 absent.
Wonderful. Thanks all. Today we've got 3 things. I think we're gonna start with Fred and the update on the COVID-19. And I'd just like to maybe even make a request that on some sort of a regular basis, I don't know if it's every executive committee meeting or every other one or whatever. I think we need to have Fred in here and talk about this. It's just too darn important for our community. So Fred, just get used to having kind of an update with us. And we'll start with that, and then we'll follow with the administrative controller report and then civil council report. So Fred, it's all yours right now.
Thank you. Good morning. And I am happy, certainly, to come back as often as you would like. It is a very challenging and constantly evolving time. And unfortunately, we have updates all the time. So I'm happy to come back as often as you'd like. What I want to do this morning is give you a quick update on our numbers and where we're looking as a community, talk a little bit about our vaccine so far to date, and then kind of merge into the expansion of Group 1B and the messages that we're going to continue with our community. So, and of course, answer any questions or concerns that you may have. First off, numbers wise, our count as of this morning is 3,838 cases. Their case rate, and again, I talk all the time about the 2 metrics which are most common are the positivity percentage and cases per million, or our case rate. And our case rate is down to about 230 cases per million. We've been somewhere between 12 and 25 cases the last 2 weeks. So that's kind of trending down, and it has significantly trended down since the middle of November when we peaked here in Midland County and most of the state, when our case rate was about 1,100 cases per million. So we're about a quarter of that at this point, and it's been a pretty steady decline, which is great news. So in a community our size, 1 bad day can affect your rates. So certainly we look at that 7-day running average and the even longer monthly averages. And I'm pleased to report we do have a marked downward trend in our case rate. The positivity percentage is a little bit different. It has some bearing on how many tests are being conducted and some other factors as well. So our positivity percentage has kind of hovered around 10. We've dipped down into the 8s and occasionally dip up into the 11s. And that's, again, a 7-day running average. And as of this morning, we're at 10.5, which is, we like to be less than 5, which kind of says we're under control, and less than 3% says we're in a really good spot. So both those numbers, to be quite honest, have a ways to go before we say we're in a good spot in the community. And as recent as September, again, just to remind you, that positivity percentage we had was less than 5, and our cases per million were less than 50, usually between 30 and 40. So we're still not in a great spot, but I'm always happy to report when we do see improvements, and that we do have positive things to report. So still work to be done. We know that as we merge into vaccine, that the better those numbers are, the more impactful our vaccine is going to be. So if our community is entirely out of control, our vaccine is not going to make that large of an impact. So we need to, as a locality, state, and country, keep working on those numbers to let that vaccine have a bigger impact. So regarding vaccine, we have to date, the health department has received 800 doses of vaccine before this week. So we got 400 before Christmas, and then 2 weekly doses of 200 after that. We got the Moderna vaccine, and as soon as we got it into arms of our community in that 1A priority group. And I think an interesting story is we had a clinic scheduled right around Christmas, between Christmas and New Year's. We were expecting 200 doses. We got confirmation from the state. We scheduled a clinic for 200 people. We got our vaccine in the morning. We had people in the office, and we literally had nurses with the vials of vaccine between their fingers, trying to thaw it so we could get it in the arms of people that were in the waiting room. And that 200 doses we got out in from receipt to exhausting our supply in less than 5 hours. So we're working very hard to get it out as soon as we can. And that whole 800 has been expended in that group 1A. This week, we got another 975 doses of Pfizer vaccine. And we had to switch from the Moderna to the Pfizer because the state has allocated all the Moderna vaccine to the long-term care project, where you have pharmacies contracted out to go do our long-term care. So they put all the Moderna stock that we had in the state and sent it to the long-term care program. So our choices were to get no vaccine or to switch to Pfizer. So we certainly have a demand that we didn't want to not attempt to meet. So we switched to Pfizer vaccine, got 975 doses. And this week it was announced by the governor that we would be progressing into group 1B, which is, phase 1B, which is some more frontline medical workers a little bit farther down the line, essential workers, and adults 65 and older, which was previously adults 75 and older. I think our community, between all the doses that the hospital got and what we got, we did a pretty good job of covering 1A. We have not had a lot of demand in 1A. So for us, the switch to phase 1B is a good thing. Some other communities are not ready to switch to phase 1B, and it's just a challenge around the state. The biggest,
Fred?
Yes, go ahead.
Steve's got a question here, and if you don't mind, I wouldn't mind having questions
Sure.
as we go through. Is that okay?
Whatever you would like.
Okay,
Yeah,
Steve,
thank
go
you,
ahead.
Scott. Yeah, thanks.
Sure.
Fred, could you remind us of the difference between the Pfizer and Moderna drugs? I think I recall hearing one was a 2-shot sequence, perhaps the other was one, and whatever else.
Sure. Great question. Pose problems for us to manage. Problems is too strong of a word. Challenges for us to manage. They're very similar in makeup of what the vaccine is, and they're both very, very effective. The nuances of how to store them are a little bit different. The Moderna we can store in 20 below, which we have our normal freezer capability. The Pfizer needs to be in an ultra cold storage of 70 below, which the hospital has. So when we get Pfizer, we've made an arrangement with the hospital. They're storing our vaccine for us. So storage is one major difference. The other major difference is how long before you get that second dose. So they're both 2 doses.
Okay.
That is in 4 weeks, you get that second dose. And the Pfizer is within 3 weeks, you get the second dose. So now we're getting into the spot where we're getting more vaccine in, but now we're starting to hit those second dose clinics. So it's almost double the clinics for us with the same first output, which is fine, because that second dose should give you that 95% immunity that makes these vaccines so special. They are both very effective vaccines with a real high efficiency rate. So we're excited to give those second doses. So the major issues are storage and how quick that second dose is. So, but
Thank you.
both very similar. Sure, great.
Great.
Yeah, and anybody else, if you want to ask a question, just kind of wave your hand. That's what Steve did, and I kind of acknowledged him. But also, do you reserve the second dose on hand after somebody gets the first dose? So are they guaranteed of having that second dose?
That is another great question. We do not, but the state holds that second dose back for us. So there is a guarantee of a second dose. And so whenever we get a first allocation, the same amount stays with the state, and then we just order it when it's time for that second dose, and it's there for us. So no
Okay.
with getting a second dose. So that's a good thing.
And will you be documenting for public consumption how many doses have gone out in Midland, that kind of thing? It'd be nice to know the
Sure.
total number injected as well.
Yeah, we will. That is actually part of our COVID dashboard right now. I'm not sure if it's live yet, but Chris Cantrell's team has worked to get that on our part of the dashboard, what we're giving out as a health department. The hospital documents a little bit differently, and we have no no association with the pharmacy program. So we can only document what we give out, and we are doing that. So.
Well, hold on just a second,
Yes,
because
sure.
we seem to do a pretty good job of documenting countywide who is exposed to it.
Sure.
Because I've had some constituents ask, well, help us know more about who's getting the vaccine, how many have recovered, that kind of thing. I know I've asked that previous question, but why is it we can't coordinate with the hospital and have one place in a publicly available place where we can document how many total vaccines have been given to the county?
Yeah, that's a great question. I probably didn't explain that. The state is able to do that. So we just don't necessarily know the allocations that go to the pharmacy program or the hospital. So we have our supply, and we can easily, we meaning the health department, can document easily what we do. And all those numbers are collected to the state on a countywide basis. So I'll check in to see how that is being portrayed at the state level and try to get a link on our website as well, so we can reflect what's happening as a community.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, sure. So the issue when we went to 1B was a simple supply and demand issue, that we were having a demand from our community. And when you included outside of the CDC recommendations, which were 75 and up in group 1B, the state of Michigan and the governor's office dropped it down to 65 and up. So that brings a whole nother group of individuals in who are interested in the vaccine. That change in the priority didn't come with an increased amount of vaccine. So it left us and every other health department in the state scrambling to meet calls and emails and demand from our community. And quite frankly, we had to beg for that 975 doses. So it's a challenge. The supply is far short of the demand. So what we're trying to do is meet that demand. We enlisted 211 to help us take some calls. And within 3 or 4 days, their office was inundated with thousands and thousands of calls. So we worked again to get a registration form up on our website, which is up, that folks can call in and register for a opportunity to get the vaccine. And as of last week, we had over 7,000 people that showed interest from those two places. So given the fact that we got only a couple hundred doses of vaccine and 7,000 people that were interested, it's an issue that is going to be several weeks or months before we can accommodate all the requests for vaccine at the given allocation. So,
And in what order do you accommodate them now, since the supply is so much less than the demand?
right, that is another great question. We have, of course, the priority groups that we use as a basis for doing that. We work really hard, and I think the most important thing from our office is to ethically give this out. And so we absolutely adhere to the priority groups. And that group 1B of age 65 or older, and then your other essential workers and utilities and law enforcement and educational people, we are trying to prioritize within that group based on what we've seen as risks in our county. So we're taking a good portion and giving it to the senior population. So the state has suggested if we could do 75% senior, 25% of other groups, that would be a reasonable way to view a scarce resource being distributed in the county. So we're also have worked very closely with our schools, our law enforcement, and folks like that as we're tiering them up in the priority group with the 65 plus population. So for this week, we have a law enforcement clinic planned today. We are doing a senior clinic drive-through or walk-in at the Senior Services Center tomorrow. And then we are doing a group from Midland Public Schools on Thursday and Friday with that allotment of vaccine.
Yeah,
Yes.
Mark, you have a question?
Hey, Fred, do you think we have enough facilities now? Are we adequate? I mean, at one point we talked about the road commission, we talked about all these different options, but do you think we have that covered now and we have the ability to administer just fine?
Yep, that's a great question as well. At this point, yes, because again, vaccine indicates how quickly we can go. the amount of vaccine we have, the facilities we have are very, very manageable. If we were getting 6,000 or 7,000 doses a week, we'd have to ramp up everything and scale up to a larger site and a larger type of output model. But at this point, it's very manageable. Senior services, Homer Township, the places we discussed for a larger drive-through type clinic are pretty adequate for what we're doing at this point and moving forward for a while.
Okay, but in the perfect world, let's say something comes out in 2 weeks, we're getting 7,000 doses.
Sure.
Probably won't happen, but it does. Are we
Mhm.
prepared if those 7,000 doses come in? Do we have a plan that says, man, we got 7,000 doses coming in, let's get them out? And do we need to regroup and then figure out what the heck we're going to do? Or are we ready for that?
No, at this point, we don't have 1 million staff. So, we are somewhat limited by the resources we have. But I really believe that our scalable plans, and we could have multiple teams at multiple sites on the same day, we're able to go through a whole lot of vaccine. I can tell you with this particular vaccine, the holdup is not getting the shot in the arm. We have to monitor after the vaccine an individual for 15 minutes to make sure they don't have any adverse reactions. They are rare. Of the 800 we have given out, we have not had, at our clinics, we have not had a concern with any adverse reactions. We have EMS on site at our clinics to make sure that there's a provision in place in case someone does, but we still have to monitor for 15 minutes. So the throughput is limited by all those folks being monitored for 15 minutes afterwards. So like at senior services tomorrow, we're going to do about between 12 and 20 individuals every 10 minutes. So we can process a whole lot of people, and that's really manageable with the amount of vaccine we had. So given that, Mark, we would just expand out to multiple spots and run people in a manner that way. So, but I feel we have a pretty good capacity to do several thousand doses in a week.
Thanks, Fred.
Sure. So as we prioritize within that group, again, schools, law enforcement are kind of two of the groups we prioritized with the seniors in this initial phase. And then we're going to try to get it out to all other groups as we go on a reasonable fashion. Again, we want to be very ethical, and we're adhering to those priority groups established by CDC and MDHHS to help us do that. So it's a challenge, again, because I am sure that someone who is very anxious for the vaccine. And so with this first group, I can tell you that the elderly folks, we started with older for the most part. So of those 7,000 people, we sorted by age, and the majority of the people within that group were 75 and plus. And we know that the more advanced age an individual gets, the higher likelihood they have of having a poor reaction if they get COVID. So we started with, for the vast majority of this clinic, the elderly, 75 or above. And I know our first sort set of that 7,000 people that we got, we had almost 600 people that were 80 or 90. So, there's a demand out there from all age groups, and we are trying to look at it in a logical manner where we address multiple groups and still focus on our seniors as well. It's a challenge, and I will be the first person to say it's probably never going to be perfect, because anybody in group 1B absolutely deserves a vaccination at some point. But when you have limited resources, we have to logically and use science to help us prioritize within the group is what we're trying to do. So we'd like to think that, within a couple weeks that we would like to see some more vaccine. The word we've got at this point is that maybe by the end of January, we'll start to see some increased allocations, but we don't know, to be honest, what we're getting next week for sure. So we would hope to get a stock to allow us to continue, but there's no guarantees. We won't know until Friday what we get next week. So in that regard, it's a little bit frustrating. And, we would like to, I'm a planner. I want us to have plans and be prepared as much as we can. But when we don't know the vaccine, it's kind of limiting as how far ahead you can think. So, we've got a scalable plan that we can absolutely ramp up if we were to get a huge vaccine. We've got multiple sites that are ready to go. We just need the vaccine to be able to do that. So I think moving forward, our message is first and foremost, be patient. So we have people registering multiple times on our website. We have people calling in after they register multiple times on our website to see if we can, if we have any progress. So we're working very hard to try to get ahead of it message-wise. with things on our website and things on social media. Those are challenging times that we are trying to stay ahead of, but I'll be first person to admit it's not perfect when there's this much demand and concern and anxiety. It's a challenge. I will tell you a quick personal story. One of my nursing directors was making calls to register folks for the clinic last night. And you literally have people on the phone crying. They feel like they won the lottery, that they are so happy that they're getting a vaccine because they've been hunkered down for 10 months and doing all the right things and just waiting for a vaccine. It brought my staff member to tears, scheduling these people that were crying because they were so happy to get a vaccine. There's that much passion and demand in the community. And it's very frustrating not to be able to meet that. But we're at the mercy of how much vaccine we get. But, our office will work tirelessly to get every dose in an arm as soon as we can once we get the vaccine. So the first message, we want people to be patient. We'll post information when we have it. We can't return every call on the same day. We're working to do that. But when you're dealing with hundreds and hundreds and still doing case investigation along with your vaccination clinics, we're doing the best we can. So we're urging patience. We also want to remind everybody to keep those public health measures that they've been doing and keep doing them. So you're masking, your social distancing, not gathering with folks. We're still seeing cases. And I can tell you that the vast majority of our cases now have an association with the holiday get together, which is no different than what we've been seeing before. So even though our numbers are down, if we drop our guard, those can kind of go up again and make it worse and make our vaccine project a little bit less successful. So we want people to keep those public health measures. Additionally, once you get vaccine, that doesn't get you out of a mask or social distancing. Those are still going to be in play. And that is because, and this is important, enough science hasn't been attained to let us know once you're vaccinated, the primary point of that vaccine is to prevent morbidity and mortality. So we don't want you to get sick and we don't want you to die. There's still a lot of unknowns about, is it possible that you can not be sick and still be a asymptomatic carrier even though you're vaccinated? So we don't know that right now. I think we're to the point where some of those trials that took place last summer, we're starting to get some data from. So we're not exactly sure how long you have immunity for, and we're not exactly sure if you can't be contagious even though you're vaccinated and not sick. So we need to continue with those measures because, again, the primary purpose of that vaccine is to prevent morbidity and mortality. So we're learning. I would hope to know within the upcoming months more about that. At a national level, we get recommendations. But at this point, we're still going to encourage all those public health measures to keep us successful. And the other thing is that it's really important for our community to know that we're going to work really hard to get the message out. We're not sitting on any vaccine. I know there's been some negative media around the country about all these doses of vaccine that are unused and sitting in people's freezers. I can tell you, we haven't sat on a dose of vaccine for more than a day so far. So as soon as we get it, we have plans and provisions in place to get it out. We'll do that quickly and effectively. It's important for our community to know that we're not sitting on vaccine and we're happy to get that out as soon as we get it. So given that, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Gay, go ahead.
Fred, thank you so much for your presentation, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I was starting to get, even on the Monday of last week, right after New Year's, getting calls from constituents in District 4 and part of the problem was what they're seeing on TV in Florida. Very, very frightening for folks that are nearing 80 years old and in their 80s to have to be outside to wait to get a vaccine. Mm-hmm. So that was their main concern. So I appreciate that. I think that I heard that you have hired someone for the marketing part of communication. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I'm going to make a comment before I talk about Chloe. I'm going to make a comment about Florida compared to what we're trying to do here. Yeah. This is a little bit different of a vaccine because we still have to be mindful in our clinics of social distancing. So we can't have lines of people jammed inside a building. So that's another thing that's kind of prohibitive in our clinic planning, because we need to be a little more spacious and be really mindful of social distancing. So the Florida things, of course, our weather's not the same, unfortunately, but that's why we're looking at a drive-through fashion. It's been kind of recommended from the state that with seniors, you have a drive-through opportunity, but we're kind of doing a hybrid clinic because some people prefer to walk in as well. So senior services is one of the facilities we have, which is great. So the social distancing part, and we're also doing all of our clinics by appointment, Gay. So that waiting in line, first come, first serve is not a really great public health structure to keep the people that are there safe. So you're not going to see waiting in line, first come, first serve vaccinations here. It's by appointment and spaced out. So wanted to make that point.
Thank you.
Yes. So we've also hired Chloe Updegraff, who you may know from some of her census work, to help with our communications. And again, this is, we want to get ahead of this. I promise you, we're working very hard to do so. But when things change so rapidly, often without notice from the state level, it's a challenge. So Chloe will be helping us with developing additional social media, working with some of our community partners, helping to update the website, because we unfortunately do not have a communications person within our department. So things are changing so rapidly that we feel that's going to be a huge benefit to help us get the word out in this ever-changing situation to our community stakeholders, because, you know, what's the number one question? When is it my turn? And, you know, that question comes from every group, whether you're 1B, 1C, whoever you are, that's what people want to know. And to be really honest, just getting people's name on that list was, I think, a mental sigh of relief for a vast majority of those people, because they're, you know, they're concerned, they want a vaccine. So we're trying very hard to answer all those requests. And I think our communications person will help us be flexible and pivot with these ever-changing times and get the word out quickly. So we're looking forward to Chloe's work here, certainly.
Mark, did you have a question?
Actually, more of a comment, and I just think it needs to be said. Fred, you and Jennifer, both of you, and all of our county employees work extremely hard, but man, the last year you guys have been ran through, between the flood with Jennifer, COVID with you, you guys have been run through a buzzsaw. And when you have a team, you want to know your team's there and's got your back when you need it. And you guys, both of you guys have stood up and just done better than I could imagine. And just so proud to have you guys on our team, as well as all the county employees. But you guys have just what you and your team has done has been amazing, and just want you to know, very, very proud of you guys.
Really appreciate that. I cannot miss an opportunity to say what a great public health staff we have, many of which you've been working 7 days a week for months, holidays, and you know, COVID didn't take Christmas and New Year's off. So we're still doing case investigation on every single case. And we have a tremendously committed and devoted and compassionate staff that I'm really, really proud of too. So I appreciate those comments, Mark, and we have a lot to be proud of here.
Fred, Scott here, and I don't want to belabor this. I want to echo the support that we all have. And frankly, if there's anything that the county writ large can do, county staff, if you need people to obviously not administer vaccine, but maybe to watch, maybe we should be thinking about any, if it ever becomes a personnel problem that large, let us know, would you?
Okay. That's a great point also. And I can tell you that, for instance, our senior clinic at the Senior Services Wednesday, Charlie Schwartz got us 30 volunteers to help. I also made a request at the state. The National Guard, of course, is deployed for these type of events. So I made a request to the state. We have 4 members of the Guard coming up to help us with traffic control in the parking lot. And that's on top of getting some law enforcement help with traffic and things like that. And EMS, of course, supporting. So, Commissioner, on that point, to this, we've had a lot of people ask, how can I help? We have a great community. How can we volunteer? And up to this point, there was really a tough, there was really no place for them to volunteer. There was really no opportunity. Moving forward, I'm planning on cashing in on all those vouchers, and we're going to need help as it gets bigger. So I certainly appreciate your help, and we will need it, and we won't hesitate to ask. And thank you again.
Yeah, just a final point. I think I've said this before. I think it's so important that transparency in terms of what we've vaccinated, how many doses we've got. I've had a constituent come to me and said, hey, they went to the state of Michigan board or online, and it says Midland County's gotten over 15,000 doses, and says that we've only vaccinated somewhere over 2,500. So there's a disconnect here somewhere, and I'm wondering how we can get that squared away.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to your previous question about, how we can show what happened in Midland County. And I can tell you, and I don't want to speak for them, but I know the hospital or Mid-Michigan Health got large several thousand allocations, but that was intended for their entire health system. So that was from Alpena all the way down to Alma. So all those doses may have registered as Midland County doses, but they weren't allocated in Midland County. Because again,
Oh, man.
that was by design to be able to get all those group 1A folks. So it might be a little misleading. I'll see what we can do. I know we have a new executive order or epidemic order that expires the end of this week, that something new will come across. I was fortunate enough to get an invitation to be on. There's a new executive or epidemic order work group of health officers around the state that I was able to get on. And so we have a meeting today about working, hopefully getting some local public health expertise to help craft those epidemic orders. So maybe we'll have some more opportunity to get local public health folks word down at the state level. And I think that's going to be an important part, because what we're seeing is really important in the big scheme of things locally. So those questions just like that, I think we can maybe have a forum to help answer, because you're right, transparency is super important, and we want to be very transparent.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, Bridget.
Just want to make a statement. This is because I've been helping monitor the health department's Facebook page and the questions that have come through the Facebook page. And a question that I think is a great question and is a good thing to communicate out that people are asking, especially the older population that may go south, even though not a lot of people are traveling. Some people are still migrating south for the winter months. And that is, if I get my first injection in Florida, I'm going to be back in Midland. Am I going to be able to get my second one here? And as Fred's already indicated, the state where you got the vaccine has already reserved your second dose. So it's possible you could get one here, but not guaranteed. So I really think that messaging is important. If people are asking you as commissioners, if you hear that question at all, it's really, I think, critical to plan on getting your second vaccine where you got your first one. Fred, would you disagree?
No, absolutely. It's reserved for you. You can't get one dose Pfizer and one dose Moderna. You have to stay within the manufacturer that you give. So it's just a lot easier to get it from the same provider you got it from the first time. I won't say it's impossible. We're trying to accommodate requests, but with limited dosage, it is more difficult. So 100%, Bridget's correct. It's recommended to get it where you got it the first time, because there's already a dose reserved for you. Not impossible, but challenging for a while. Now, we'd like to think within the upcoming months, certainly by summer, anybody who wants a dose or to be vaccinated, that'll be available to them. But we are honestly months away from being close to saying that. So.
But what a shame for a vaccine to be wasted as well, right? If
It's
you got the first
yeah.
shot and then you couldn't get the second one.
Right. It's not necessarily wasted. We have the first one gives you some immunity. And I've seen the Pfizer is thought to be about 52% immunity, 52 to 55 after the first dose. And after the second dose, a couple weeks after, it goes up to 94, 95. The Moderna is expected to be a little more effective after the first dose, maybe as high as 80% effective, and then goes up to 84, 85. But that top level immunity is absolutely not attained until that second dose. And, it's really important to get that. Now, that first dose, you don't necessarily have to start over, but you absolutely need the second dose to be able to gain full immunity, or the highest level of immunity, rather.
Great. As always, top notch, Fred. Appreciate
Thank you. And reach
review.
out with any questions. I'm
Oh.
happy to come back as often and we will.
Looks like
work hard.
Counselor has a question.
Yeah, Fred, I've heard that there is some evidence given to people who have received the vaccine that they have actually received it, like a card or some other evidence. Is that happening, and what's the purpose?
You have a vaccine card and two things happen. So this helps you track your second dose. So anybody who gets it will get a card provided by the CDC. And you could, if you needed to go to a different place, you have a record of your shot. Also, we're putting people into our immunization registry, adults that get the vaccine. So there'll be an electronic record as well. So that absolutely happens. And another point to know that when you leave a clinic, like when our seniors leave the clinic on Wednesday, they're going to be given an appointment. We're basically going to do the duplicate clinic 3 weeks from that day. So they're going to be given an appointment for their second vaccination when they leave with their first. So this is a piece, that card you mentioned is a piece to help people manage that, but we're trying to make it a non-issue and manage it for them in that first vaccination.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Fred.
Yeah, thank
Let's
you.
move on. Bridget, what you got for us?
I'm going to try and weed through this really quickly. If I skip over something you have a question about, just ask me, because I know Bill's got some things he needs to cover as well. Just a jail update, just, reminder that our population is down. Our revenue from federal inmates is going to be down accordingly. Hoping that once the immunizations happen out in the jail that we'll be able to notch that up a little bit. Pinecrest, I had at the very last minute this morning, this is no reflection on Corey, but Corey Priest, our new director out at Pinecrest, I quickly sent him an email asking him if he could hop on the meeting, but he may be walking through the facility and not gotten my request. So I'm going to see if he can join us at the board meeting next Tuesday so you can get a quick introduction to Corey. A lot of things happening out at Pinecrest. We had a little bit of slowdown with the addition, but over the holiday, but that's back up and running. Three Rivers is right on top of it. You may have seen on Facebook that thanks to some volunteers from Fisher Contracting, we have an enclosed area out at Pinecrest where people can come visit their family members that are residents there, which is lovely. A lot of thanks and gratitude goes out to JW and his team. Moving on, community corrections. This has been a busy time, even with COVID, for pretrial, which is a wonderful service for us to have, considering we've limited the number of occupants in our jail. So pretrial services have been very busy. Equalization, Mary has started in anticipation of the assessors completing their valuations. She sent out all the notices for the rolls, notices to go out to people hopefully by February 17th.
Bridget?
As far as I know, yes.
Scott, at what point in time are we going to have our first look at kind of the impact of the flood on assessments?
Well, I was starting to get there.
Oh, never mind.
Well, and it's a great question, and the answer is you'll see little bits and pieces of that, I think, morphing into early 21. So Mary has seen instances where properties that were not damaged are actually selling above their true cash value, even though there's no lake at the moment. She's also seen some pockets where properties have sold below their true cash value. The largest instance of property selling below their fair market or true cash value is those properties that have been damaged. So, and there's a list of various damages that she has to go through and the properties that she needs to go through. So the answer is sort of ambiguous, yes and no, but it's a thorough process that Mary's going to have to go through. So I don't think that we're going to have any solid answers as too soon. But I'm glad to hear that some properties are still selling above true cash value that were impacted in the area of the flood, because that tells me that there's hope that, and people are anticipating that everybody's going to work together to try and bring the lakes back. So that gives me a little hope in that aspect too.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Flooding and dam failure under emergency management and COVID. Jennifer's been busy still working with groups actively in the community, trying to, particularly with case managers and the long-term recovery group, trying to continue helping get people back on their feet. We have been working very closely with FEMA and our legislators on trying to get quicker answers on things like debris management at the parks. There may be an opportunity for us to put an application in with NRCS, National Conservation Group, to help cover the cost of the debris management at about 75% if FEMA denies it. So that's a lot longer conversation than this meeting. Just know that we are on top of it, and I'm rallying every political power I can to help with the Region 5 office of FEMA down in the Chicago area. And Eric probably knows that because I've been on the horn with Molinar and Ashton and everybody else. So.
Well, you know, I got a couple of buddies in Chicago. If you ever want to pull that trigger, just let me know. Guido.
This is a public meeting that's being streamed on YouTube. I'm not responding. Okay. Finance, this is a busy time of the year for finance. Now that the budget's up and completed, your finance staff is busy trying to wrap up things for the year end, and seems like the audit just finished, doesn't it, Mike? And we're already trying to gear up and get all of the entries in to make sure we close in time for the auditors to start.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for the first time in a while, the mileage rate has gone down. We put that in there just in case you are going to be needing any sort of reimbursement, but I'm not going to pay you as much as we did last year. It's a little less. Skipping the health department, because I think you've probably heard enough on health department activities today. I was going to just, I didn't want to distract from Fred's presentation, but a little trivia. Does anybody understand why the Pfizer vaccine has to be kept at negative 94 degrees? Anybody?
Can't imagine.
So pharmacology is fun, not as fun as accounting, but it's very intriguing to me how this works. So scientists have been able to isolate the RNA of the virus, which is similar to our DNA, but RNA is the string of what makes the virus do certain things. And they've been able to isolate the string of RNA that triggers you've seen the pictures of the COVID vaccine, right? They got all the little spikes out of it. And so they've been able to isolate the piece of RNA that sends a message to those little spikes to stick in your system to make you sick. And so what Pfizer has done is they have wrapped that piece of RNA in lipids or fat to make sure that it cannot message the little spikes to make you ill. And so which is why it has to be kept so cold, because once it starts to warm up, the fat or the lipids melt and it doesn't work. So there's your little piece of trivia for today, in case you didn't have enough trivia in your brain already. All right. Let's see. Human resources. We do still have some job openings. As I mentioned, Corey Priest, the new executive director out of Pinecrest, started last week. We welcome him to the team. IT. You may have noticed that we've had a few issues with our email on and off. I'm trying to figure out this whole VMware system and creating a stable environment for us to morph over into the newer Exchange Microsoft upgrades. So once we feel a little more confident about that, we will hopefully be on 2019, not 2016. We have kicked off our website project with Jesse James Company out of New York, so that's very exciting. One thing that you will have to do if you're not using an iPad, but if you're trying to access the county's systems with a laptop, you will, and VPNN, you will at some point in the near future have to use multi-factor authentication. And I brought this up a couple times, but I just want to remind everybody that that helps keep our systems protected. It can be kind of a pain. My Delta College is doing this with all the students' emails, their student portals, and the e-learning site. So every time my son has to log in, he has to get a message to the app on his phone, and he has to approve that it's him trying to get in. So it's just something that we're working towards with so many folks working remotely. Mosquito control, I just want to make note that there have been no mosquitoes for the last 30 days.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. If anybody finds one, I want to know. Parks and Rec, we got a lot going on. John has really been knee deep in this the FEMA conversations we've had about debris management and stuff happening at the parks. So I really appreciate, and Patrick too, but I really appreciate John's involvement. He's doing a great job staying on top of things. He has also met with Wolverine Fireworks to discuss the potential of Sanford Lake Park being location for fireworks over the 4th of July. And I think we're going to be able to do it. But that is something he's probably going to bring up if he hasn't already to the Parks Commission, for those of you on the Parks Commission.
I have to
That's
say,
pretty-
Bridget, just on that, as I was reading through that, I chuckled to myself because I thought, wow, the safest way to really do that fireworks is on a barge in the middle of Sanford Lake. And then I thought, wait a minute.
Wait a minute. Right. Someday.
Yeah.
Someday. That's pretty much it for me, unless someone has a question about something I popped over or something I didn't put on the list that you want to chat about.
Questions from anybody? Jeanette?
Hi. I didn't ask this of Fred, but I was curious, Bridget, you probably know, how much of our staff has been vaccinated?
The health department staff has been vaccinated because they were putting on clinics. And today will be, and Pinecrest was vaccinated last Friday. And again, we're not forcing people to get vaccinated. So if a staff member doesn't want it, we're not forcing them to get it. So for example, not every member of the health department wanted a vaccine. Not every employee out at Pinecrest wanted a vaccine, and not all of the residents wanted a vaccine, and they have a right to say no to it. We will have today, the folks that work in the jail and the JCC are going to be vaccinated. So that's a good portion. I think we'll after the vaccines, I think Fred mentioned vaccine on Friday for folks some of the folks in Midland Public. The next round of vaccine that we get would be for for those essential employees like law enforcement here in the community. And I can't remember who else is in that category, probably more teachers at that point. I know that the governor was hoping that there would be an in-school option for most kids K through 12 by March 1st. So that means more, we have to make sure a good number of the teachers and educators are vaccinated. So does that answer your question, Jeanette? Okay.
Yeah, thoroughly. So at Pinecrest, we have some people that I assume the staff makes decisions for, but you said some of them have been able to say, no, they don't want it. And that's been okay.
Yeah. Not everybody has, needs a guardian. So a guardian is like Steve as guardian and conservator, or one or the other for some folks, gets to make health decisions for his wards. Some of our residents at Pinecrest are able to make those decisions for themselves.
Great, thank you.
Great.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Bridget? If there are none, then Counselor, you are up.
Well, thank you, and good morning, everybody, again. I'm going to be, I think, as brief as Bridget. A couple of matters that are initial. A few weeks ago, I think at one of the first meeting, perhaps, or the last meeting in December, we had a FOIA appeal, which we granted in part. That was Mr. McGee. And Mr. McGee was still dissatisfied, so he has filed an action. I'm going to say that loosely, an action in circuit court, which I've responded to. And there's a hearing on that before Judge Karras in the end of January. I do not anticipate that Mr. McGee's position will prevail, but it's not up to me. It's up to the court. So that's ongoing. We also had received a second appeal from a different requestor. However, that appeal has been withdrawn. After discussions, they simply withdrew it. Then the other matters that were significant in the last few weeks has been, as you can imagine, with regards to the dam and Four Lakes Task Force. I did have a telephone conference for about an hour yesterday with the legal team at Four Lakes discussing the current and former contracts that we have with them. I know that they are planning and going forward with trying to resurrect the lakes and make things as normal as they can ever be in the future. But it's going to take a while, and it's going to take dollars. And I think that the primary source of the dollars has got to be the state and or federal government, because no one else can approach that kind of scope. Mr. Kepler is working on that, and as you can imagine, very thorough and very active. The other matters relating to that are to let you know that the condemnation action, which was delayed in federal bankruptcy court, is now, there was a resolution, a payment made by the county, by the Four Lakes Task Force to the Boyce folks and to the bankruptcy court, resulting in a release of the properties. Subsequently, the condemnation action filed in Midland County and in separate action filed in Gladwin County were resolved, and the court has ordered the property into the title of Midland County. Those documents have been recorded. Midland County is now the owner of the Sanford Dam and surrounds. We do not yet have the bottom lands that we had transferred to the Four Lakes Task Force, the predecessor of Four Lakes, back in 2015. However, they are anxious to put that back into the hands of Midland County, and we will have that opportunity, I think, in the next few weeks. In that latter regard, I've been working with John Schmoody, and he has derived a press release and some posters, placards, to go into the areas of public access, and a press release for the general public to warn them, along with Jen and Bridget as well, but to warn the public of the dangers surrounding access to the dam properties. There has been a discussion with Four Lakes about use of the river surface and river waters in the spring and summer, but right now for the winter, it's dangerous out there for snowmobilers and other people who would just enter on the property. And while it is not Midland County's at this point, it will be soon, and we will be responsible for it. So we've already been in touch with our insurance company and the like, but that's an ongoing process to determine how to notify the public and hopefully protect them from the dangers that may exist on the bottomlands. And other than that, I think there are numerous contracts and FOIA requests and things that are kind of normal, but basically, if you have any questions, I'm here to try and answer them.
Thanks, Bill. Any questions for Bill? Steve, is that you with a hand up or no? No. Okay, thank you. Seeing none. Before we move on to commissioners' update on boards and commissions, you probably see a new face on the screen here, and Bridget's going to tell us all about it.
Yeah, well, thanks, Scott. I'm going to actually let Corey introduce himself, but just as I mentioned earlier, Corey Priest is our new director out at Pinecrest, and he's been here you know, this is just starting his second week, so I'd love for him to take a few minutes and introduce himself.
All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Corey Priest, and second week it's been very busy. We have a new director of nursing here, Heather Clark, as well. Both of us have been very well received so far with the staff, with the residents, as well as many family members that I've had a chance to speak with and starting to get to know. So very excited to be here. Excited to hopefully see our addition, maybe pick up some speed here soon. I know the residents are very excited about the addition to have a little bit more space. So otherwise, my feet hit the floor running, just trying to learn policies and procedures and just get a feel for the facility. So thank you.
Great. Welcome to the team, Corey. Mark, you've got a question? Then I think Gabe.
Just a
was up.
comment. I was going to say the exact same thing. Welcome to the team. We're glad to have you, Corey. Look forward to working with you.
All right, thank you.
Great. Anybody else? Gay, did you have a question? Okay.
Yes, I did. Good morning, Corey. Looking forward to working with you. I'll be on the Zoom call on Thursday. I'm the liaison between the Board of Commissioners and Pinecrest. So welcome aboard. Glad to have you.
Steve, is your hand up or is it is not? Okay.
Corey,
just to
you
final-
don't have to stay, Corey. You can go back to work now.
Okay, I've got it.
Hey, Corey, could you just tell us where you came from and a little, just a history of.
Yeah, absolutely. I was born in Midland County. In between Shepherd and Oil City is where my parents still reside. My grandpa at one point was the Greendale Township Supervisor for many years, John Priest. So a lot of history here in the county. At one point about 5 years ago, I was the administrator for the Candlestone Assisted Living out on Waldo.
Right.
I was with that company for about 5 years. So I've got almost 22 years in long-term care history. So I started out as a nursing assistant, working the floor, and kind of worked my way up through HR. I've done business, the office manager positions, marketing roles, finished school. And yeah, I was excited for this opportunity to come work for the county.
Fantastic. Again, welcome to the team.
Thank you. Nice meeting all of you.
Yep. Bridget, did you have a question or are you just waving?
No, I'm just waving bye to Corey.
Okay. Okay, let's move
Bye-bye.
on to Commissioner's update and let's start with Commissioner Glazer. Hello? Oh, we lost. Oh, there he is.
I'm here, sorry. Yes, I have this evening, Greendale Township, that'll be a virtual meeting. Normally.
Steve, this is
Jeff-
about meetings of the past.
Meetings of the past, I'm sorry.
I gotta keep remembering that's the way it goes.
Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah,
Yeah, actually, things were quite slow for me in the past. I did attend Homer Township meeting. Not a lot going on there. And actually, that's pretty much it. So it was a pretty quiet month for me.
great. Thanks. Let's move on to Commissioner Terwilliger.
Yeah, so good to see everyone. And I don't really have anything remarkable to report on with past activity. I will say that there's a lot of new personnel coming on board at both Mount Haley and Ingersoll. And so things look good so far. There were no changes with Midland Township, but that will be tomorrow night. So, and those are all Zoom calls. So that's all I have, and I'm looking forward to working with Corey on Thursday at the Pinecrest meeting. So it feels good to have a full complement of personnel at Pinecrest. Let's just say that, right, Bridget?
Amen. Bridget, I think just stepped out for a second. Just okay. Commissioner Dorian.
Good morning. The management folks on our side have met again for the fourth time. Well, actually with the road patrol deputies folks as well for the fourth time on the 5th. And we think we're pretty darn close to having a tentative agreement that I believe Suzanne and perhaps Councilor Green may be presenting to us this next Tuesday. But hopefully things look very good. Obviously, it's a contract, so we can't talk details here.
Right.
So it's all so that's all I have.
Thanks, Eric. Jeanette?
Hi, thanks. Things have been fairly quiet. We went over the budget for the road commission, so that was interesting. I wasn't gonna sit on that. That was the week, same week as Christmas, but I saw that we were going over the budget, so that information's all available. From them, there was nothing out of the ordinary there. For the parks, it is interesting to talk to John and Patrick. Like Bridget said, they are very involved with what's going on. Unfortunately, it just was hit very hard. But they do have the 5-year plan. They were working on that in 2020, and we have to have that on file to apply for grants or anything we want to do with the parks. And so there's a link, and it's out on our website if you want to take a look at it. They're receiving comments, and that's on all our parks, a 5-year plan. And then after they receive all the comments, then the final copy comes, will come to the commissioners. But right now, I just want to let you know that it's live out there if you want to take a look at what's going on. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Bone, or Chairman Bone, I should say.
I have nothing to report as of now, beginning of the year. So things are starting to ramp up. So I'm done.
Great. And for me, I have two things. One, the We Hear You group has been quite active in the last 2 months. And just this last Wednesday, we completed a videotaping of over at the MCTV, actually the library and the auditorium. And that has included kind of the main players, the core group of the city mayor, Maureen Donker, the chief of police, Nicole Ford, Diane Brown Wilhelm, who was kind of the initiator of this whole activity, Sharon Mortensen from the Midland Community Foundation, and myself representing the county. And it was moderated quite well by Selena Tisdale from the city as well. That is going to be available, going to be uploaded to MCTV, and it'll be used in a couple of other forums, primarily for the purpose of introducing a survey coming out in the next couple of weeks to all of the county. It's a survey to really try and document experiences related to diversity, inclusion, those kinds of things. We've worked with Saginaw Valley State University to develop that survey, and we've road tested it. Look, it's a pretty darn good survey, and we anticipate hopefully a big participation. The final point involves the Great Lakes Bay Michigan Works Association. We have a small committee that's exploring a fundamental restructuring of that Great Lakes Bay Association. And Bill,
Yeah.
and it's driven by a couple of things. First of all, what initiated this is you guys may know that Saginaw County is our fiduciary, and we have about 13 folks from Saginaw County that work exclusively for Great Lakes Bay Michigan Works. Frankly, I don't want to get into the details, but the cost of those 13 individuals is getting prohibitive because of some direct and indirect costs being charged back to us which we believe is a bit unfair. But I think maybe the second issue is even more relevant, and that is a different structure to allow for more grant development and grant seeking from Michigan Works. And you do that by creating a separate 501c3 that can reside within Great Lakes Bay. I don't have all of the details on this. We're exploring about 4 or 5 options and actually some hybrid options. We've got some folks coming in from other Michigan Works associations across the state on their experience. A lot of them have gone to this 501c3 model. So just stay tuned. There's a lot of moving parts on this thing, and just wanted to let you know. So those are the 2 elements I have. So let's move on now to commissioner comments, and Commissioner Glazer, any parting shots?
No, thank you. I appreciated the update from Fred, the controller's report. I think it was very informative, very helpful. So thank you.
Great. Commissioner Terwilliger.
Yes, really glad to hear from Fred, and thank you so much, Scott, for just making the suggestion to Fred that we would be requesting an ongoing update at least monthly at executive. And I think that that's a wonderful idea and very, very necessary. This is, the word fluid is I guess the best that I can say. And I would just say, with everything that's went on since the last time that we met, for me personally, lots of prayers for our country. So, and particularly within the next week or 2. Thank you.
Thanks, Kay. Commissioner Dorian.
Yeah, I'd also like to echo Fred's update. Very much deeply recognize Fred for, I had a constituent that had some concerns, and I communicated those to Fred and Bridget, and we were able to turn that in less than 24 hours, get a response to my constituent, who was a VIP, of course, and get that. We just dealt with it. It was done, and my constituent was very pleased that they got a positive response so quickly. So thank you very much again, Fred. That's all I've got.
Thanks, Eric. Now, Jeanette, comments?
I hate to go out of order, but I did miss something with the 4 Lakes Task Force, and I just wanted to make you aware there is a survey being distributed to those that live on the lake or the backlots, which I find very interesting. I'm glad they're doing it. As you can imagine, I mean, I really had to think, because I live on the lake. I'm a backlot owner, as you know, but my house wasn't affected, and I didn't bear the burden that some of these people, their homes are still pretty well destroyed, and then to ask to be taxed more. I mean, when you really just sit in that and really think about it, there's a lot there. And of course, 80% want to press forward. And so I think the survey is interesting. And the 4 Lakes won't be able to see it's being done by an outside company. And so I'm really interested to see what those results say, because, you know, you get some people that are very loud, but it's not always the majority. So I'm just very interested to see what that has to say. And my comments are, I think this has been a great meeting. Thank you to Fred for the report. We needed to hear that. And thank you for saying we need to hear from him maybe a little more often. I know he's busy and I don't want to tax him anymore, but just to make sure we're all abreast of what's going on. Thank you.
Okay, Chairman Bone.
I have no comment.
Okay, and I have no additional comments either. Okay, is there any other business that's to come before the group here? Anybody else have anything? See none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Support?
Support.
Support.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, meeting is adjourned until Tuesday, January 19th, 2021 at 9 a.m. to meet in a regular session of the Board of Commissioners and for the committees to resume their duties. Y'all have a great day today, and I'll see some of you at 1:30.